Good morning. I'm Dr. Richard Vance, and today I want to talk about something that quietly affects millions of older adults every single day, yet almost nobody ever connects it to stroke risk. Because there is a very specific time window in the human body when the risk of stroke is significantly higher than any other time of day. Not during stress, not during physical activity, but in the first few hours after waking up in the morning. And what makes this even more important is that most people over 60 go through this window completely unaware of what is happening inside their own body. No symptoms, no warning signs, no pain. Just a silent biological transition that, in some cases, can determine whether the brain is protected or placed under dangerous strain. And I want to be clear from the beginning. This is not about fear. This is about understanding timing. Because once you understand why the human body behaves this way after 60, you stop seeing stroke as a random event, and you start seeing it as something deeply connected to physiology, rhythm, and transition. So in this video, we are going to break down exactly why strokes happen more often in the morning. What is happening inside your blood vessels? What your brain is experiencing during those first waking hours? And why small morning changes can have a surprisingly large impact on long-term brain health. Let's begin. The morning pattern doctors have observed for decades. Across hospitals worldwide, neurologists have documented a very consistent pattern. Stroke admissions are not evenly distributed throughout the day. Instead, they cluster. And that cluster appears most strongly in the early morning hours, typically between 5 a.m. and 10 a.m. This has been observed across multiple populations, different countries, and different healthcare systems. And while researchers initially assumed this might be coincidental, over time the pattern became too consistent to ignore. Because what it suggested was something deeper, that the human body does not experience equal vascular stability throughout the day. Instead, there are natural fluctuations in risk. And one of the most important fluctuations occurs during the transition from sleep to wakefulness, especially after the age of 60. Because aging changes something critical, not just strength, not just energy, but responsiveness. The speed at which your cardiovascular system adapts to change. And when that responsiveness slows, transitions become more stressful on the body. What happens inside your body before you even open your eyes? To understand morning stroke risk, we need to start before you even get out of bed. Because during sleep, your body enters a very different physiological state. Heart rate slows down. Blood pressure naturally drops. Breathing becomes steady and reduced in intensity, and blood flow is redistributed in a lower demand pattern. This is completely normal. In fact, it is essential for recovery. But something else also happens quietly in the background. Mild dehydration begins to develop overnight. Because you are not drinking fluids for several hours, blood becomes slightly more concentrated. Clotting activity becomes more active as part of normal circadian biology. And circulation slows into a resting baseline. Now, in a younger body, the transition out of this state is smooth and fast. But after 60, the rebound becomes slower. And that is where the challenge begins. Because the moment you wake up, your body does not ease into activity. It shifts rapidly. Blood pressure begins to rise as part of the natural morning circadian surge. Stress hormones like cortisol increase sharply to prepare you for alertness. heart rate begins to accelerate, and blood vessels start constricting to maintain stable pressure as you change position. Now, none of this is dangerous on its own. This is normal human biology. But what matters is timing and coordination. Because in an aging system, these responses do not always happen in perfect sync. And when systems lose synchronization, that is when instability appears. Why synchronization matters more after age 60. Think of your cardiovascular system like an orchestra. The heart is the conductor, the blood vessels are the instruments, and blood flow is the music. In a young, healthy system, everything stays synchronized. When the body wakes up, all parts adjust together. But after 60, some parts respond faster than others. The heart may accelerate quickly, but blood vessels may remain stiff. Blood pressure may rise faster than circulation stabilizes, and the brain may increase activity before oxygen delivery fully adjusts. This creates a temporary mismatch, a short window where demand and supply are not perfectly aligned. And in medicine, instability during transition periods is one of the key conditions where risk increases. Not because something is broken, but because the system is adjusting unevenly. Why the brain is the most sensitive organ in this process. The brain is unlike any other organ in the body. It does not store oxygen. It depends on continuous, stable blood flow every second. Even small fluctuations matter. Now here is what makes the morning especially important. When you wake up, your brain activates very quickly. Thought processes increase. Sensory awareness returns. Balance and motor control systems reactivate. Emotional and cognitive processing restart at full speed. But the cardiovascular system is still stabilizing. So for a short period, the brain's demand for oxygen increases faster than circulation fully stabilizes. This creates what researchers describe as a temporary perfusion imbalance. In simple terms, the brain is briefly asking for more than it is receiving in a fully stable way. In most cases, the body corrects this quickly. But after 60, correction takes longer. Because vessel elasticity is reduced and regulatory reflexes are slower, this is why even small disruptions in the morning can have amplified effects. Why strokes cluster in the morning hours? Now let's connect this physiology to real-world outcomes. A stroke happens in two main ways. Either blood flow is blocked or a blood vessel ruptures. Both of these outcomes are influenced by three key factors: pressure stability, blood consistency, and vessel integrity. In the early morning, all three of these factors are in transition. Blood is more concentrated due to overnight fluid loss. Blood pressure is rising due to circadian activation. Blood vessels are less flexible after hours of rest. And clotting activity is naturally slightly elevated. At the same time, the brain is increasing oxygen demand. So you now have a system where everything is shifting at once. And when multiple systems shift simultaneously, the margin for error becomes smaller. This is why stroke events cluster in the morning. Not because morning is dangerous, but because it is a biologically active transition window. The role of posture change and early movement. One of the most overlooked triggers in the morning is something extremely simple: getting up too quickly. When you move from lying down to standing, gravity suddenly pulls blood toward the lower body. The cardiovascular system must respond immediately. Heart rate increases, blood vessels constrict, and pressure regulation systems activate. But after 60, this reflex becomes slower. So for a brief moment, blood pressure in the brain can drop. This is known as orthostatic stress. Even if it lasts only a few seconds, it can cause temporary reductions in cerebral blood flow. Many people feel this as dizziness or lightheadedness, but often dismiss it as normal aging. In reality, it is a sign of delayed cardiovascular compensation, and when combined with the natural morning blood pressure surge, it adds another layer of instability during the exact time the brain is most sensitive. Why the first few hours matter the most. Neurologists often refer to the early morning period as a risk clustering window, not because something external is causing harm, but because multiple internal systems are adjusting at the same time. Hormonal shifts, circulatory changes, metabolic activation, neurological re-engagement, all happening simultaneously. This creates a short period where small stressors can have larger effects than they would later in the day. For example, a mild blood pressure increase in the afternoon is usually well tolerated, but the same increase in the early morning may contribute to instability when combined with other physiological transitions. This is why many stroke cases occur shortly after waking or during morning routines. Not because the routine itself is dangerous, but because the timing amplifies biological sensitivity. If there is one idea I want you to remember, it is this. The morning is not dangerous by itself. It is a biologically sensitive transition period, and after 60, that sensitivity becomes more pronounced, not because the body is failing, but because it responds more slowly to rapid change. And that means timing matters more than most people realize. Small adjustments in how you enter your morning routine can reduce unnecessary stress on your brain and cardiovascular system, not by changing your life completely, but by respecting the natural rhythm of your body. Because most strokes are not random events. They are often linked to predictable biological patterns, and one of the strongest of those patterns happens in the morning. So the goal is not fear. The goal is awareness. Awareness of timing, awareness of transition, and awareness of how your body actually works at 60 and beyond. If you found this information helpful, make sure to subscribe right now, because every week I break down real medical science in a way that helps you understand what your body is actually doing before problems begin. And as always, stay aware, stay consistent, and take care of your health one morning at a time. Dr. Richard Vance.